Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you for tuning in, broadcasting live on Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, and YouTube, meaning we can take your comments and your questions every day live at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Our next guest is Ray Soto, the Director of Emerging Technology for the USA Today Network. We are so excited to have him on to talk about this whole world of virtual reality, AR, MR, how that's being utilized and how we're crossing the bridge into creative storytelling and journalism, how it's accenting it. I have so many questions. I should probably just bring you on the show. Hello, Ray.
How's it going?
Doing great. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into my questions and talking about everything you're doing, why don't we just, if you don't mind, if we could walk people through kind of your background and how you came to this position here at USA Today.
Yeah, first and foremost, I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of share our story. But to answer your question, it's definitely been an interesting journey. I am a former video game developer. I worked for, EA, NCSoft on different IPs, mostly on PC online gaming. And I did not expect to get into, creative storytelling within USA Today and news. But when I think about it, kind of looking back, it's a really perfect fit. When you consider where virtual reality and augmented reality, the tools that are used to create these experiences, they're very much similar to what you find in the video game industry. And it kind of, when you consider my background and game developers, we're passionate about interactive stories. So it was definitely an interesting transition. It was definitely a challenge because when you consider video games highly creative, in the news space, you can't make stuff up. So there was quite a bit of a learning curve, but something that I very much appreciate to have had the opportunity to make that transition from video games into creative storytelling here at USA Today.
I think it really is kind of a unique situation. You have video games always at the forefront, or generally speaking, the forefront of technology, and USA Today, which is in the past at least considered to be a more traditional journalistic news source, and marrying these two and just crossing that bridge, like what were one of the first steps that you did when you hopped on board, and how do you see this this crossover happening?
Yeah, so the whole conversation started around there was someone on the digital side who had reached out to me. And they had gotten my phone number from a colleague asking if I was interested in exploring virtual reality opportunities, as applied to storytelling. And, my interest was very much piqued. At the time, this was almost 5 years ago, the Oculus DK1 was out. So, everyone was really interested in virtual reality, but no one at the time really was speaking too much how to apply interactive storytelling within that platform. So, the conversations really started off with what can we do with this platform that provides a unique perspective for an audience, someone to feel as if they're actually there, to feel as if they're engaging, have full control of the story the way that they want to actually consume the story, essentially play up to virtual reality strengths. And the conversation that we initially had to support a project that ultimately we ended up releasing called Harvest of Change was truly inspiring. I feel as if the USA Today Network truly understood that there's an opportunity here to do something different, to explore, and it's what we've been doing for the past 5 years. And you had mentioned before, for virtual reality, augmented reality, and where things might go from here. And USA Today is very much, there's a rich history of innovation, and this is just one small aspect of one of our kind of commitments of exploring storytelling through emerging tech.
So just kind of a multi-tiered approach to bringing people different viewpoints and different ways to look at the news or the articles or the investigations that you have going on.
Absolutely, yeah. It's one of those things where we're developing these interactive stories because we feel as if there's an impact there. When you consider some of the work that we've done more recently, our Pulitzer Prize winning the Wall project, in which VR was just one small component of this very, very large feature story, that we want users to engage. We want them to feel as if they can walk away from something with a little bit more information, feel as if they've been moved in some way. So each project that we look at and possibly to determine whether or not we're going to work with VR or AR as a component of a story, it's what can we do that plays to the strengths of the story and how can we apply the technology to it. So it's not necessarily just bringing the news, it's more of just telling a story that can really leave an impact.
Let's talk about a couple of the projects, because I mean, you brought up The Wall, which congratulations, Pulitzer Prize winning, and And what did you do with that? Because we've got some video I wanted to show, just kind of how you took that story and how did you apply VR to that to give that other perspective?
Yeah, that was, that was one of the most rewarding projects and also the most challenging projects I've ever worked on. It was very, very ambitious. We started the conversation months early before we even started capturing some photographs to kind of build the environments that you see here. And ultimately, what we wanted to do was provide, a perspective in which these different environments across the border are very different from one another. That building a wall at the border is actually a much more complex issue that most folks might not realize. And we thought that VR would provide that perspective of, that you can't necessarily build a wall down this massive cliff at Big Bend, which is one of the experiences we have within this project. So, the entire process was very interesting. It was also very much of a creative and development challenge. When we had started off, we were hoping to leverage LiDAR to build out our environments. We had hired a helicopter crew to go out and capture points of data, and we were hoping to build some environments from there, and it just didn't work for us. Fortunately, we ended up leveraging photogrammetry. They were, capturing high-resolution images for us, and that got us a nice foundation to build upon. And from there, we started just working very, very closely with the editorial teams that were, at these different locations to tell these stories, to make sure that we're providing the perspective that the user feels as if, okay, I'm actually there. But at the same time, learning what makes that location unique as applied to the story. So things such as, drug trafficking, migrant crossing, eminent domain, very, very complex, lots and lots of different types of topics within it. So it was complex, but it was a lot of fun to work on for sure.
I mean, I think it's really incredible, and obviously Pulitzer Prize winning on top of that. I mean, I think this idea of making something more real, especially when it comes to a story like that with the wall, or just making it more interactive for people, it makes it more, this isn't just something I'm reading about, okay, that's, that's not, whatever, it's a story, that's fine, I can go off and forget about it. You do this, you're actually in there and you're feeling what's going on, you're getting to see it from those perspectives and something that you wouldn't normally get. I think it's really incredible. Let's talk about one of your other ones. This is the USS Eisenhower. Mm-hmm. I was just watching some of that online. Let's talk about the creation of that and what that is.
So I like to call this one the Eisenhower project, our kitchen sink project. I'd mentioned early on that our very first interactive VR project was Harvest of Change. Mm-hmm. And we learned quite a bit developing that experience. And at the time, we really had no reference materials to work from. And that included, 360, what works, what doesn't work for the video side of things, what works from a UX perspective and interaction schemes. So what ended up happening is the U.S. Navy reached out to us and provided us an opportunity to actually get onto the Eisenhower for 3 days of live combat training exercises. So when we had that opportunity, we wanted to return back to interactive storytelling and provide an experience that users feel as if they can actually explore and discover mm-hmm. the many, many stories on this floating city. And we incorporated stereoscopic video working with the Nokia Ozo. We had 2 camera, 4 cameras, 6 camera arrays. We had spatial audio. We essentially took everything that we had done over 2 years between Harvest of Change and this project to apply everything that we had learned. And I wouldn't say that we had everything figured out, but we had a hunch as far as storytelling, and that we could return back to it. And it was just the right time, and it did very well for us. And it was a fun project to kind of kickstart where we would be going after the Eisenhower project, because when you consider the Eisenhower project was our second interactive, and what we learned from the Eisenhower we applied to the wall. So it made it a bit more of an easy transition for us when it comes to complex storytelling of various topics.
Complex storytelling and figuring out which technology works best for which story, in this new format as it's developing constantly too. It's not like this is a platform that's been around for a long time. It's always changing, and so I imagine that's a big challenge when it comes down to it. Let's talk about your the 321 app, the 321 launch app. What are your plans with that, and where do you want to take people with this app?
The one thing I want to preface that with 321 launch, it was our first augmented reality app, and it was due to a strong collaboration with our Florida Today, who are our space experts based out of Florida. And we were very, very fortunate enough to have the access that we did, down at Kennedy Space Center, trying to learn which stories we can tell. But ultimately, we wanted to provide an experience that users who can feel as if they're a part of these live launches. So through augmented reality, you'll see an example here. The Falcon 9 rocket, sitting on the actual launch pad, you would see it animate in real time, in sequence with the actual launch that's happening from Kennedy Space Center. And our plans for it, we're very much looking forward to expanding it. Right now it's limited to just one interactive, non-live experience, but users can still watch all of the upcoming launches to include, the Falcon 9s and ULA's launches as well. But we're looking to expand it because we recognize that there are different, let's say the Falcon Heavy. There are different locations that some of these rockets can launch from. So we're looking to expand it. We're very fortunate that Apple featured the app, and we see that folks are engaging with AR content, storytelling, and we're looking to expand it. And we have some big plans coming up for the app.
Very cool. As somebody who really loves anything, I'm a space nerd, so I love the idea of this app like this. That's so much fun to me. Final thing I wanted to ask here too, just where we're going forward, just kind of maybe thinking forward several years. How do you see this evolving? I mean, we have, people are working on haptic suits and different things like that. I mean, are we about ready to be in Ready Player One essentially in a couple of years, or where do you see this going in the next few years?
I'm really, really excited about where VR, AR, and just emerging technologies are taking us. What I see is a future in which convergence of different technology types coming into, singular platforms, persistent platforms. What I'm really excited about is augmented reality's future. With where we're at right now, I think it's a little bit more playful. Folks trying to kind of figure out what works, what doesn't work. For our specific purposes, we're focusing on a storytelling side of things. But for the future of AR, I could see an opportunity in which, eyewear, walking down the street, to kind of pull from what Charlie Fink had said at South by, data is everywhere. And we want to leverage that data in a much more intuitive and seamless way. And I feel as if we're maybe just a couple years out from that. And our hope is to have USA Today to be, a part of that ecosystem, a part of that, the brand for you to be there when you need it. And well, I don't think we're necessarily too close to Ready Player One. I'm very much looking forward to something like that. Don't get me wrong, but I do see all these technologies continue to grow. I think the momentum is going to just continue to gain traction, and audiences are going to be looking forward to it.
Ray, thank you so much for joining us and talking about this really exciting stuff, and excited to see where it goes and where you go with the USA Today Network and all the different things that you guys are coming out with. Ray, thanks so much for hopping on Digital Trends Live.
Hey, thanks much. I appreciate it.